As quiet citizens living what seem to be average lives, little detail is known about the Eriksson sisters. However, what we do know may shock you. Welcome to Seriously Strange, Caught on Camera. Ursula and Sabina Eriksson are two twins that were born in Sweden in 1967. The girls were raised in the same Swedish town until going their separate ways when they were older. Ursula moved to the United States and Sabina made her way to Ireland. Though it is not known when the sisters left their home country, it is known that Sabina had married and settled down in Ireland with her husband and two children. It's not certain if Ursula has settled down, as most details of their personal lives have been withheld from the public. Our case begins on May 16, 2008, when Ursula went to Ireland to reunite with her sister Sabina for unknown reasons. According to Sabina's husband, the twins had appeared to be inseparable when together that May, but what anyone had failed to realize was that the sisters established a plan to flee the country without notifying a single person. At approximately 8:30 a.m. on March 17th, Ursula and Sabina entered Liverpool after leaving Ireland at 2 a.m., eventually making their way to St. Anne police station in order to report concerns over the well-being of Sabina's two children. It is unknown as to why Ursula and Sabina reached out to the police in Liverpool when Sabina's children resided with their father back in Ireland. Both women resumed their trip and boarded a National Express coach bus that was traveling to London. At approximately 1 p.m. that afternoon, the bus made a stop at Keele Station after the driver began noticing both women exhibiting erratic behavior. Passengers aboard the bus were required to store personal belongings in the appropriate compartments before leaving the station. However, this was not going to happen for the sisters. Tightly gripping onto their bags, they refused to let go of their belongings and declined the coach driver from inspecting their bags for illegal substances. Feeling uneasy, the driver had no choice but to take precautions and leave both Ursula and Sabina stranded at the station. Their suspicious behavior caused the manager of the station to contact police. However, once questioned by police, it was concluded that both women were deemed innocent enough to catch a new bus to their destination. Instead of simply waiting for the next scheduled bus, the women made an unusual decision to walk instead. What one CCTV camera caught shocked surveillance workers. The sisters took to foot and began walking along the M6 motorway just north of Keele Station. The following is actual video surveillance footage taken by closed-circuit television cameras of Ursula and Sabina walking down the central reservation, just a couple of feet away from speeding vehicles. In a daring leap, both women are seen jumping into oncoming traffic, causing an incredibly dangerous collision to occur. At approximately 3:20 p.m., officers and paramedics are called to the scene after one of the sisters was allegedly hit while crossing. Officers Tracy Cope and Paul Finlayson were in the middle of filming an episode of Motorway Cops, a BBC television series that followed UK law enforcement as they tended to their police duties. The film crew at the scene had no idea what tragedy was about to unfold. Just as cameras focused on highway patrol officers, Ursula is seen running in desperation as she recklessly runs into a tractor trailer, violently rolling underneath the wheels of the vehicle. Sabina follows her sister and seconds later is seen jumping in front of a silver Volkswagen Polo, destroying the car's windshield and leaving her unconscious. Their unusual behavior led police to believe that the sisters had formed a suicide pact. However, both of them survived. Ursula had miraculously survived her accident, fracturing bones from the waist down while failing to express any pain from her traumatic injuries. Motorists had no choice but to watch in concern as police attempted to calm the women down. However, things only began to get crazier. Despite throwing herself into oncoming traffic, Sabina regained consciousness after a matter of minutes and forcefully began pulling herself off the ground. In no time, she began to exhibit immense anger and strength, kicking and punching the officers. Sabina runs runs to the opposite end of the M6 motorway, and it takes several officers and citizens to restrain her. Being in critical condition, Ursula is flown to emergency while officers sedate Sabina. While investigating the twins, officers discover multiple cell phones inside of their bags, as well as a laptop, one passport belonging to Sabina, but no trace of identification for her sister. After extensive examinations in the hospital, doctors ruled out any trace of alcohol or drugs in their systems. Sabina was deemed safe enough to be released. This would be a regretful mistake. Released with minor cuts, Sabina was taken into custody with Birmingham police. Once questioned, it had almost seemed as if her memory had been completely wiped. Complying with police regulations, Sabina was charged and pled guilty to assaulting an officer and trespass on a motorway. She was sentenced to just 1 day in custody. In one scene during her time in the police station, Sabina states, "An accident rarely comes alone. Usually at least one more follows, perhaps two." On May 19th, she began wandering the streets when she caught the attention of 54-year-old Glenn Hollenshed and his friend Peter Malloy. Covering up the news of her recent arrest, she insisted that she simply needed to locate the nearest bed and breakfast while her sister was in the hospital. Seeming lost and in need of help, Glenn welcomed Sabina into his home located in Fenton. Upon entering his home, Sabina continued exhibiting strange behavior as she frequently monitored his windows, appearing to be paranoid. This caused extreme discomfort in Peter. Sabina later offered the gentlemen cigarettes, but just as they sparked their lighters, she immediately snatched the cigarettes out of their mouths, insisting that they could have been poisoned, even though she had been smoking the same pack throughout the evening. Glenn's neighbor, Frank Booth, would be the last person to ever see Glenn alive. The following morning on May 20th, Glenn approached Frank outside and requested to borrow tea bags from him. It would be a few minutes later when Frank would overhear Glenn yelling, "She's stabbing me." The following is real footage of Sabina running away from the neighborhood after stabbing Glenn 5 times in the chest with a kitchen knife. Panicking, Frank immediately called police in hopes of catching Sabina. It is later noted that Sabina escaped while holding a hammer in her hand. Reports of Sabina hitting herself in the head with a hammer had been made by a driver who got out of his car and attempted to confiscate the hammer out of Sabina's hand before she began striking him on the back of his head with a roof tile. In just a matter of minutes, police were able to track Sabina, but before they could make an arrest, Sabina jumped off of a bridge and landed 40 feet down onto a roadway. Miraculously, once again, she survived her incident, and Sabina was taken to the hospital with broken bones and was forced to recover in the University Hospital of North Staffordshire. Sabina was arrested on June 6, 2008, and was discharged from the hospital on September 11th of that same year. She was discharged for the manslaughter of Glenn Hollenshed with diminished responsibility. Sabina refused to comment on the murder of Glenn and would refuse to explain what her intentions were, as the prosecution and defense claimed that she was deemed insane during the murder. During the trial, the defense counsel introduced the possibility that Sabina had suffered an instance of shared psychosis, a rare syndrome in which the delusions of a stronger personality can be transferred to a weaker personality. In this case, Ursula, whom the defense claimed had a history of mental illness, somehow passed her psychosis onto Sabina. An alternative theory was that Sabina had suffered from a case of puff of madness, a syndrome where a perfectly sane person will suddenly lose their mind for a small time and then return to normal. Sabina pled guilty on September 2nd, 2009 in Nottingham Crown Court and was sentenced to 5 years in prison for her crime. Reports on the twins led to them becoming international sensations for a short time, but left even more questions in the long run. Not only has a motive never been discovered, no family members have come forward in regards to the case either, aside from an unconfirmed interview by someone who claimed to be the girl's brother, but even a name for the man was never given. Ursula has since recovered and has returned to the United States. She's now a member of the Sacred Heart Church in Washington. The exact whereabouts of Sabina are currently unknown. However, there's a good possibility she has returned back to Ireland, where she resides with her husband and children. Family members of Glenn Hollenshed continue to search for answers today, as they believe that many faults were made by the justice system. It seems like both women are sane individuals when apart. Together, they are a lethal duo. That's all for this episode. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you thought of this new series. And if you'd like to learn more creepy and bizarre things, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I will see you next Wednesday.